So today we're going to be covering adding values. How do we add value and where do we add value? So we're going to be adding value in the STP process, the segmentation, targeting and positioning process. We're going to be looking at the core business processes, and we're going to be viewing some mission statements and even touching upon why mission statements are so important. Session learning outcomes includes to critically evaluate the needs and techniques for controlling marketing activities, to critically assess the impact and value of a brand from a number of different stakeholder perspectives. So we're going to be discussing adding value, where we add value and why it's so important. Now, when we look at the 3 V's and marketing approach, and we're looking at market segmentation, we're saying define the value segment, define the value proposition, and to define the value network. So if we look at the steps in market segmentation, the first step is to review market segmentation, identify the basis for segmenting the market, and then develop the segment profiles. Then you go into targeting to develop the measure to segment attractiveness, and then to select the target segments. So many times we see in so many diagrams that you go straight into your target market. Well, you can't do your target market until you've done your market segmentation properly. Otherwise, it's going to fail. And then after you've done your target market, you go into your market positioning. You develop a positioning strategy for your target customers in relation to your competitors, and you develop a marketing mix for each of those segments. So you combine the standard 4Ps or the extended 7Ps to meet that particular target market's needs. So key aspects of the marketing strategy start with these steps. Missing out these can cause problems with approaches to doing business. The issue mainly hospitality tourism organizations have, particularly small independent ones, is that there is no longer a marketing department to start the whole process off. So people just start with whatever they feel that they want to, and they normally go straight into target marketing, and they presume to know the people who they want to be targeting without even having done the segmentation in the first place. If we look at the segmentation process, Bowie et al. 2017, it says there are 5 different stages, including to specify the marketplace, to establish segmentation criteria, to generate segmentation variables, to develop market segmentation profiles based on step 3, and then to evaluate the fit with the company's competences. So if we look at number 1, specify the marketplace, what we're saying here is, the market research and segment must be clearly identified. Larger markets such as the events should be broken down further, since different event types will have different needs and different customers and different aspirations. So again, you must specify the marketplace first. Number 2 is to establish a segmentation criteria. A set of criteria should be developed in order to evaluate the segmentation opportunities against segmentation markets. Should be discrete, measurable, profitable, accessible, and compatible. So you must establish the segmentation criteria. Step 3 is to generate the segmentation variables. These provide the basis for classifying consumers in different market segments. What could hospitality and tourism industries use as different variables? The more variables that are chosen, the better the data, and ultimately the understanding of potential customers should be greater. Step 4 is based on step 3, to develop segment profiles based on step 3. This should generate specific market profiles about a market segment, and it should be specific information with specific data. Data should be very specific in terms of the market size, the market value. If you're looking at customer buying behaviors, how many times they were taking holidays or specific types of holidays. But then you would look at how long they were spending, how many holidays they were taking, what size of the group were they, and how much they were spending over what period of time. And then linking into the customer or consumer characteristics, the benefits they would be seeking, and how sensitive they are to price. and accessibility and responsiveness to marketing communication programs. So the data needs to be very, very specific. It can't be general. Step 5 is to evaluate the fit with the company's competences. In order to be successful, a company should always evaluate its own resources and capability to meet the requirement of that segment. So again, if we look at the different segmentation categories, you could have different ones including behavioralistic. What are consumers' behaviors in terms of the benefits sought, purchase occasion, purchase behavior, usage, perceptions and benefit. The most common ones are the demographic and geographic. Demographic variables, the age, sex, income, household size, the types of consumers. You've got geographic in terms of different locations. And then you've also got psychographic segmentation. Psychographic segmentation is where you can build in a lot of value segmentation along with the behavioralistic in terms of identifying the needs of customers, which we're going to come back onto value segmentation later. So hospitality and tourism variables, these are the ways in which an organization can divide a large group of people into smaller segments. This should build an idea of customers' expectations. A common variable used in service sectors is the purpose of the travel or visit. Is it for business, non-business, visiting friends, family? Again, segmenting by behavior and the type of or the purpose of the visit. If we think about segmentation variables and geographic, this is useful variable when there are geographic locations differences in patterns of consumption and behavior. The approach can be used to identify different countries of different interests, but also has the ability to look at domestic markets as well, cities, countries, states and regions and customer origins. And many countries require accommodation providers to collect data from international visitors in terms of passport details, and this can be useful for marketers to kind of find out exactly where people are actually coming from different marketplaces. So when we think about geographically segmenting markets, what are the benefits of doing this? Well, you've got lots of different data sets and lots of other marketing research agencies that link in and can be linked geographically. You have ACON, which stands for a classification of residential neighborhood types, and this has information about the classifications of different types of people in different types of neighborhoods, because as they say, birds of a feather flock together. And then this can be linked with postcodes, and this can be linked with buying behaviors in terms of Tesco's and their Tesco's club card, for example, linking into ACON. Then you can get the ACON classifications of similar types of neighborhood, of similar types of people who buy similar types of products, whether it's premium products, medium products, or low-cost products. So again, you can target different people with different marketing strategies to reach those people to offer those products and services in similar type neighborhood types from a geographical perspective or location. If we think about the segmentation variables in terms of demographically, this category can include many things, including age, but even age can be linked back to different types of people, like the baby boomers, Generation C, digital natives, Millennium, Generation X's, Generation Y, Generation Z type people. Again, and this will have an impact on the marketing strategy and the use of the marketing mix depending upon the type of people that you were trying to target. If we were looking at the baby boomers, who are the baby boomers? The baby boomers, were basically people who had their children in the early 70s, 80s, and they paid off for their mortgage. They may have 2 or 3 houses, and they've got lots of disposable income. Their children have grown up, and now their time is their own. They're looking to enjoy their time. They're looking to enjoy their interests. They're looking to do more activities and go more places now that they've got more freedom, and they've got the disposable income to do it. And so you need to target these people and say, well, who are they? What are their characteristics, and what are the underlying motivations in terms of the psychographic segmentation, and then identify these and then say, well, what are we going to offer these people? What do these people want? And what would be the pricing strategy to these types of people? So, again, very, very important to understand these. And these will definitely then, once you link in other segmentation criteria to these and buying behavior, then you can understand how you're going to modify your marketing mix to meet these target customers' needs. Demographic, variables including gender. Some hospitality products are specifically directed at either men or women. Hotel companies have identified the increase in lone female travelers and provided greater security for female guests. One company has provided a service vetting hotels and certifying them as female friendly. Leopard Hotels, a small hotel chain, has a lone female policy. Again, if we think about family size and structure in Western cultures, it's common for families to have an average of 2 children. Sometimes in the UK they say 2.4 children. However, in other countries, it could be higher or lower, depending upon the legislation and law. In China, how many children are you allowed to have? The culture of a country may influence. These African nations have larger families. The size of families will usually influence the amount of disposable income they would have to spend on leisure and holidays. This would also influence the expectation in relation to facilities available within a hotel or resort. So, again, there's been an increase in the number of people who travel alone as well. Again, all these things need to be taken into consideration to segment the market up to determine later on who you want to target and why. Again, ethnicity, religion, nationality, these are very important for the service sector. To understand the link between these variables and food is very important. Kosher food, or for Orthodox Jews. International organizations operating in a variety of different countries should carry out research to understand this aspect. Now, if we look at the segmentation variables from a demographic perspective and the social economic class, again, these variables are available. Variables are available in terms of deciding, are you going to target an A-type person? A stands for higher managerial, administrative and professional type person, or B, intermediate managerial, administrative and professional. A C1 type person, supervisory, clerical and junior managerial, administrative and professional. A C2 type person, skilled manual workers. A D type person, semi-skilled and unskilled manual workers. Or an E type person, state pensioners, casual and low-grade workers, unemployed and state benefits only. And you can see that only 4% of the people in the UK represent a class A type managerial, administration and professional type person. So which categories do you think you'll be going for? Is it an A type person, or AB, or ABC1, or BC1, or BC2? Again, you would look at these, but don't just say, well, I'm going to segment the market by demographic variables and I'm going to take the social economic class. Again, with value segmentation, you which we're looking at later, you really need to go into more detail in terms of the needs and the psychographic segmentation variables and the underlying needs and wants of the target customer. Now, if we look at value segmentation is critical for pricing. Most segmentation criteria correlate poorly with the different motivations of different buyer groups to pay higher or lower prices. So even needs-based segmentation gives priority only to those differences that are important to the customer. So they miss the other half of the story, those customers' needs that have the greatest operational impact on the seller's costs to serve those needs. So when we're looking at value segmentation now, we really want to be a little bit more detailed and a little bit more specific. And again, step one is to determine the basic segmentation criteria. And the goal of any market segmentation is dividing the market into smaller subgroups whose members have common criteria that differentiate their buying behaviors, as we talked about earlier in terms of the basic segmentation. Step two is to identify discriminating value drivers. Having preliminary segmentations in hand, you then need value drivers. Value drivers means nothing else than the purchase motivators that vary amongst these different segments, but which have more or less homogeneous levels within those segments. This allows you to zero in on what is most important to each customer segment. Never assume for pricing purposes that preliminary segmentations based on obvious criteria will coincidentally yield effective discrimination in terms of value criteria. Step 3 is to determine operational constraints and advantages. So in this step you examine where you have the operational advantages, which value drivers you can deliver more effectively at a lower cost than others. Also, which drivers are constrained by your resources and operations. Inputs into this step can be, for instance, experience, capital spending plans, personal capabilities, and the overall company strategy. If we look at the generic, value chain, we can see the primary activities and the supporting activities. And the primary activities include the inbound operations, outbound, the marketing, sales, and services. And within the operations, this is where your systems, your processes, your practices that are actually put in place, and your supporting activities, your procurement, technology, human resource, and infrastructures that allow you to be more efficient and more productive, or less efficient and less productive, and your marketing strategy, depending upon the techniques and tools and processes you implement to gain a competitive advantage due to the way you carry out your business. And it's that which will then, or can, allow you to offer advantages to specific target customers within specific segments, to offer better price differences in comparison to your competitors. The next step is to step 4, to create primary and secondary segments. So this step combines what you've learned so far about your customer values, and this may differ from your costs and constraints in serving customers. So most firms will find it convenient to segment your marketplace in multiple stages. Then we have stages 5 and 6, and stage 5 means to create detailed segment descriptions. So value-based market segmentation variables can look meaningfully to the price strategies, but segments should be described in everyday business terms so that the salespeople, marketing, communication planners knows what kind of customers each segment represents. And then step 6 is to really develop segmentation metrics and fences. This is the next logical step in pricing strategy and management. In this final step, it is important to recognize that segmentation is not useful until you develop the metric of value delivery to market segments and devise fences that encourage customers to accept price policies for their segments. When we're talking about metrics, metrics are the basis for tracking the value customers receive and how they pay for it. For example, car rental companies, used to be kind of like people used to rent a car and they'd be charged on how much mileage they traveled, as well as a standard charge. So in addition to the time used, over time, competition now forced the rental companies to actually stop the mileage charges. So time alone has become the market recognized value metric. So sellers now define discounts such as weekly and monthly rental sales based on time bundles, so time being the value metric. If we think about the fences, these are the policies, rules, programs, and structures that customers must follow to qualify for price discounts and rewards. For example, minimum volume requirements, time-based membership requirements, bundled purchase requirements, and so on. Keep the prices paid so that the value delivered to customers are in line. Some fences can actually force customers to pay higher prices regardless of the seller's costs. So again, very, very important to look at the metrics and the. Now we move on to the value proposition. Value proposition tells prospects why they should do business with you rather than your competitors, and makes the benefits of your products or service crystal clear from the outset. If we look at various value propositions in terms of, Uber's value proposition offering Uber convenience, Apple's iPhone proposition offering the unique experience, Slack's value proposition focusing on credibility and productivity, Digit's value proposition offering hands-off savings, Less Accounting's value proposition offering, improved quality of life. So, what we first talked about was looking at segmentation and looking at different segmentation at stages and the different criteria, the different sectors like behavioralistic, psychographic, demographic, and geographic, and then the different variables within those four areas. But then we're saying that we really want to be thinking about value segmentation and the value proposition. So what we need to do is to get more specific information and identify the value, the needs, the motivators, and focusing on the psychographic, the underlying needs and motivators as regards why people need those specific products or services, and as well as the behavioralistic segmentation. And then overlapping that, I would suggest, with geographic and demographic variables, as well as going into more detail in terms of the consumer buying behavior model as regards to why people buy things, which we've discussed before. Is it a limited, routine, extended problem solving? If it's extended problem solving, then are you talking about a compensatory decision buying rule? Are you talking about a non-compensatory decision rule? And so all these things need to be overlaid to truly understand the motivating factors, the needs as regards to why people are doing things, rather than saying we're just going to go with demographic segmentation. We're going to look at these variables to segment the market. We need to really go for value segmentation. So now we're going to look at the core business processes, and then we're going to look at the mission statement. So if you remember at the beginning, we said we're going to look at the value proposition, we're going to look at core business, and then we're going to look at the mission statement. So the core business processes includes, thinking about the market sensing process, the new offering realization process, the customer acquisition process, the customer relationship management process, and the fulfillment management process. Some of the characteristics of core competencies includes, it is a source of competitive advantage. It's definitely a source of competitive advantage. I mean, even if you look at Toyota when they came out with just in time, if you think about it, implementing just in time and being the first, company to implement just in time meant that they had developed and taken time to make close links with their suppliers, so that the suppliers delivered their component parts at the time that they needed these component parts, on the day, at the right time, with the right quantity, with the right quality of component parts, so it could be delivered straight onto the production line. So this basically meant that they didn't have or need a warehouse, they didn't need stocking, they didn't need staff in terms of warehouse manager, didn't need the infrastructure, didn't need the software, didn't need all these additional costs. Which meant that if you think about it in terms of your profit and loss account, you have your sales minus your cost of goods sold, gives you your gross profit, minus your overheads, which is your expenses to the firm, which gives you your net profit. So if your cost of goods are lower because you're not buying stock and you're just buying the stock when you actually need it to go into the production line, and you're not holding stock in terms of your opening stock and closing stock, and then you don't have warehousing costs, staff costs, infrastructure costs for holding the stock, then you've got lower overall costs, which lead to higher net profit, which leads to, after you take off your interest charges and your corporation tax, and then your shareholders' dividends, then leads to retained earnings, which goes into the equity side of your balance sheet, which basically means that you have more equity within your business on your balance sheet to use to invest into new product development, into marketing, into research, into paying your staff better to motivate them to increase their productivity and their efficiency, therefore giving you a competitive advantage over your competitors who are not doing this. In addition to this, it has implications in a wide variety of other markets, and it also is difficult for competitors to imitate. So, steps in the business realignment process includes to define a business concept. What is the business concept? Shaping the business scope and positioning the brand identity. But, ensuring that your whole value chain can actually meet your positioning and brand identity as well. So, questions answered by the holistic marketing framework include, how can we identify new value opportunities? How can we efficiently create more promising new value offerings? How can we use capabilities and infrastructure to deliver the new value offerings more efficiently? So what is a marketing plan? A marketing plan is the central instrument for directing and coordinating the marketing effort. Is where your focus is going to be. It's where your allocation of resources and staff and people and finances are going to be geared towards achieving your overall aims and objectives. And having that plan is extremely important. And that planning process will include corporate planning, divisional planning, business planning, product planning, which will lead to your organizing and implementing, which must then be controlled in terms of measuring the results and diagnosing results, and if necessary, taking corrective action. So planning activities includes to defining the corporate mission, defining what the business is, assigning resources to each SBU, strategic business unit, and assessing growth opportunities. Questions to ask when thinking about a mission and defining a mission includes before you can do your mission statement, what is our business? Who is the customer? What is the value of the customer? What will our business be, and what should our business be? So let's have a look at the mission statement, because the mission statement is at the beginning of your whole strategic organizational plans and the direction of your company. So if we look at Volvo, Volvo's mission statement: to create the safest and most exciting car experience for modern families. And even if you look at the design and the steel bars in the side of the doors, the construction of the boot and the bonnet, and if you get hit anywhere on a Volvo, you're most likely to survive in a Volvo than any other car. If we look at eBay, eBay says we help people trade practically anything on earth. We will continue to enhance our online trading experience of all collectors, dealers, small businesses, unique item seekers, bargain hunters, opportunity sellers, and browsers. Some of the characteristics of a good mission statement will include, state a limited number of goals, stress the company's major policies, values, and culture, define major competitive spheres, take a long-term view, and state it in brief with flexibility and distinction. So, if you were to think about a mission statement, what, in your opinion, would be a good mission statement? Can you take a position? So, take a position. Mission statements are critical to the success of marketing organization. Would you agree or disagree with this? Is a mission statement critical for the business or not? What do you think? And mission statements really provide useful marketing value. What do you think? Do mission statements provide useful marketing value or not? So we're going to be looking at these in class. Let me know what you think. Definitions of businesses, include BP sells fuels, Rennet sells automobiles, BP sells fuels. In terms of the market definition, BP sells energy, or Renault supplies transport vehicles, for example. Major competitive spheres, you must take into consideration various elements, which includes the industry, the geographic, vertical, market segmentation, the competences of that industry, and the products, and how competitive it is as well. Characteristics of a strategic business unit, include, it is a single business or a collection of related businesses that can be planned separately from the rest. It has its own competitors, and it has a manager responsible for strategic planning and profit performance. And if we look at the strategic planning gap, we're saying to ourselves, what do you want to achieve in terms of sales growth over what period of time, and how are you going to get there? Is it going to be via diversification, integrated growth, intensive growth? So exactly how you want to get there with your current portfolio and new portfolios and so on and so forth, which will then bring in the BCG matrix and your strategic planning. And if we look at the business, unit strategic planning process, which includes, we said at the beginning, the mission, the vision, the aims and objectives, and then your, situation analysis. Your situation analysis in terms of, SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Strengths and weaknesses being internal to the business, and opportunities and threats being external to the business. And then we talked about, Pestel in terms of political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental factors, and also Porter's 5 force model I'd put in there as well. Then you have your goal formation, dependent upon your situation analysis, strategy formulation in terms of your STP, your segmentation, targeting, and positioning strategy, and now value segmentation, and value positioning, program formation, exactly formulation, exactly how is this going to be conducted, over what period of time and what resources, and implementation of the, I would say, extended marketing mix, the product, price, place, promotion, people, process, and physical evidence. And this will lead back onto feedback and control, and also, if necessary, corrective action. Here we have your SWOT analysis, and again, the SWOT analysis, is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats to your business. We will be going into this in more detail with separate slides and videos for this. Market opportunity analysis, we need to think about various things. Can we articulate the benefits to a target audience? Can we locate the target market and reach them with cost-effective media and trade channels? Does our company possess or have the access to critical capabilities and resource we need? Because you may not have the critical resources and capabilities to specific skill sets or people that you might need to undertake your business manufacturing process. Can we deliver the benefits better than competition to give you a USP or competitive advantage? Otherwise, how are you going to compete? Is it just going to be on market penetration and on cost? Will the rate of return meet or exceed our expectations? So we're gonna look at Porter's generic strategies again. We've looked at this a number of times, and again we will go into this in more detail. Again, forms of strategic alliances, product or service alliance, promotional alliances, logistical alliances, and pricing collaborations. And this needs to be taken into consideration in terms of your value chain as well. What alliances do you need to have, and why? Because maybe you need to have these. If you again look at Just in Time and Toyota, working with their suppliers, and their suppliers don't supply anyone else. Their suppliers only supply Toyota for their Just in Time. Their whole company is geared towards one customer, which is Toyota. This is their alliance. And elements of strategy. What do the elements of strategy include? Includes the organizational structure. What structure do you have? What is your strategy? Are you going to go global? Are you going to stay domestic? What is your strategy? What is your organizational structure? It is a domestic orientating structure. Is it a multi-domestic structure? Is it a global structure? Depending upon your strategy. What about the systems in place and the style? What about the skills that you need in your workplace and the staff that you have? And what about the shared values, the organizational culture? And so the contents of a marketing plan will obviously include an executive summary, which will be done last, but be first on your marketing plan, followed by a table of contents, and then your situation analysis, followed by SWOT and Pestel and Porters. But more market information analysis needs to be done, and also reviewing the company's accounts and where they're going and what's actually happening as well. Very, very important. You can't just base it on superficial information. You really do need to go into detail in here. Marketing strategy, and again you need to break this down. You need to break down STP, segmentation, targeting, position. You need to break down the behavioralistic, psychographic, demographic, and geographic segmentation groups, and then the different elements within those groups, and then adding value to those. Financial projections. What are you trying to achieve over what period of time, and what are your implementation and controls in place? So, the contents of a marketing plan will include your executive summary, contextual analysis, customer analysis, competition analysis, company strategic approach, channel analysis in terms of distribution and marketing communications, cash analysis, going back to the balance sheet and seeing what you have, marketing management, implementation and control. So Kotler and strategy. We're not going to look at this video, we'll do that in class. So today we have covered adding value. We've gone through that in a little bit of detail. We looked at the core business process, and we've reviewed again the mission statement. So thank you today from Mr. Tan.